Hey, Chris, Danielle here. I know in the previous 2 seasons, just with the personnel you've had, most of the time on the floor, it's been 2 guards, 2 forwards, 1 center. But with the versatility of some of the guys that you'll have on the roster next season, do you foresee, getting away from that traditional lineup a little bit more?
The question, Danielle, is a little confusing because, I think no matter who you put on the floor, at times I think that, people are going to pigeonhole kids as, okay, he's the guard, he's the forward, he's the center. No matter if you put 5 guards out there, you'd say, okay, that guy's the undersized center. Think about Virginia Tech. So I look at it less of like who plays what position, more so I look at it like the versatility that we're aiming to get, all throughout our lineup, various skill sets at different positions. And so your team changes from year to year, but I don't know if that answers your question completely, but I don't necessarily look at it like we're traditional or we're non-traditional. We want guys that have a great versatility and that know how to play the game and are capable of, helping us win.
No, that covers it. Thank you.
Coach, this is CL Brown. I was curious what your approach was to kind of the unknown of this all, specifically related to June and July. Actually, if you are able to go out and see kids in person, recruiting events, or if you're going to have to kind of do all of this at old school.
Yeah, great question, CL. I think obviously the future is a little bit cloudy for everybody. Really, in every profession, ours is no different. Going on the immediate, April is usually a time for us to do home visits, to collect information on various AAU teams and which kids are playing for what teams and what events they'll be at. And then this April, we were supposed to have 2 live periods, one of which I think an Adidas event was going to be held in Louisville. So we were sort of excited about that for kids to be able to see our city. And then they'd have the opportunity to walk themselves over or drive around campus, knowing that we couldn't host kids on unofficials during that time, but it still would show off our city and our program. And so April is really what we're dealing with in the immediacy, and not just recruiting, but also our own team and making sure our players are safe and that they've sort of created a routine that we've helped them with back home. How it plays out in terms of summer recruiting in June with high school camps, July with AAU, really remains to be seen. And we're going to have to follow the guidelines of whatever happens with the NCAA. Do they extend more days in either one of those months? Do they move some evaluation days to August or September? I think right now the NCAA has probably bigger fish to fry, but everything's important. Every sport's important. And once we understand what the calendar looks like, then we'll adjust. But in the meantime, we're probably watching more film on our computer of high school kids than ever before. We're on the phone like madmen, our entire staff, and I'm sure we're no different than a lot of staffs around the country, both with graduate transfers, traditional transfers, and high school kids. So that's just sort of life as it is right now.
This is Aaron Matus with WDRB. Is bringing in a grad transfer guard officially a thing now? Is that a strategy that you enjoy, or is that just year to year it's worked out that way for you so far at Louisville?
We're always going to address what we feel like we need, every season. The one thing I would tell you is in 2020, roster volatility is greater than it's ever been. When I first got in this 21 years ago, you traditionally had, your 4 classes, the seniors graduated, incoming freshmen came in, you may have a kid here or there transfer. But with the advent of the graduate transfer rule, with kids opting to transfer more than ever before as either underclassmen or graduates, with kids reclassifying either up or down at the high school level, your roster simply is a lot more volatile than it was years ago. And again, our job is to try to make sure that we put the best team on the floor that we can. And so, I don't think it's one size fits all. There may be some years where we may take, like we did this past year, a grad transfer. I would hope that we're not in that situation every year. But again, our job is to put the best team on the floor that we can. When you have NBA defections, when you have guys that maybe your class is a little bit bigger from one year to the next, when you have a transfer, maybe all that hits at once, you're going to have to address the roster as you best, as you see best.
Chris, this is Ken Spitzer from WHAS 11. Do you think that you'll have Jay Scrubb next year, because obviously he's declared for the NBA draft, or do you kind of approach that like you did a lot like Jordan last year?
I approach those situations, pretty similar. I think it's my job to collect as much information as I can for Jay, so that he, his dad, and the people that care about him make the best decision that they can. I'll be supportive of it either way, but it's very preliminary right now because they still haven't received the undergraduate advisory committee's feedback yet. When they get that, then they'll probably have a better feel for what their intentions are. The process is a lot different. I don't think there are going to be, I know there aren't going to be any workouts, whether they end up in the combine for simply medical purposes. Who knows? They'll probably do a lot of Skype interviews and FaceTime interviews with potential draftees. But you can't even do a workout in your own gym and send it to a team. They have to go on the film that they already have. So the ability to move up the board or move down the board, at least in my mind's eye, has been compromised with what we're all dealing with. So to answer your question, it really doesn't matter what I think's going to happen. But we'll be on top of it every step of the way with Jay and his family here over the next few weeks.
Chris Sullivan from the Courier. Wanted to get a handle on how your guys are working out, if anybody's able to get any shots up, and what you want them to emphasize during this period.
Right. So their ability to get better as players is a lot of it is really dependent on the resources they have available to them. I know Coach Kettler has worked hand in hand with our guys to try to keep them in the best possible shape while they're at home. There are certain rules that the NCAA has mandated across the country, probably more so with liability than anything, which is a little disappointing because our guys and probably guys all around the country are used to having a little bit more of a routine, especially when you've been a few weeks removed from your season. But be that as it may, we'll follow the rules. Our guys are doing a really good job with what they've been given. The basketball part, getting in the gym, getting shots up, I would tell you that out of the 11 guys that we have are going to have, I would tell you that maybe 4 of them have access to an indoor gym. And the other 6 or 7 are lucky if they can find an outdoor hoop either in their driveway or down the street. And even some of those, just in my talks with a lot of our players and recruits, a lot of the outdoor hoops, the baskets have been taken down, either by the city or by the county, you name it.
Thanks.
Hey, Chris, it's Lucas with Courier Journal. Just wondering, on the subject of the NBA draft process, if you've spoken to David or any of the other non-seniors about anything going on with that, and if you are expecting anything, if you're expecting anybody to declare or anything like that. Have you had those conversations?
Yeah, I've had conversations with each of the guys that it's relevant for on our team. We put feedback in to get feedback for Malik. I think that, what you have to understand is you can do one of two things. You can put your name in the draft. And again, there used to be every year there's a process, workouts, getting feedback, going through individual, workouts, getting invited to the Chicago Combine if you're lucky enough or fortunate enough to be invited. And then again, making a decision based on that feedback. You can also just ask the undergraduate advisory committee for simply feedback without putting your name in. And so that's what Malik has done. We're still waiting on that feedback. There won't be anybody else on our team that is going to put their name in or won't be a part of our team next year.
Thanks.
Just to clarify, Chris, that means that David Johnson is not going to pursue anything on that score?
Correct.
Okay.
Chris, Fred Calgill with WLKY. Have you talked to the seniors that are leaving as well as Jordan just about, moving on and all of that and kind of the bad taste in your mouth about what happened?
Yeah, I've talked to our seniors a little bit through this time. It's probably pointless to keep rehashing how sad we all feel and not playing the tournament. They're big boys. They're mature enough to know that the whole world's in a tough situation with this pandemic. It doesn't make their pain a little less, but at the same time, there's no reason to continue to have conversations about that. More of my conversations with our seniors, whether it's on the phone, FaceTime, or text, is just centered around, a few of them want to continue to play professionally, hiring agents, which again is awfully strange. Some of these guys can't even meet face-to-face with the agents. They have to do it by telephone. They can't have sit-downs like they traditionally do. And other than that, just seeing how they're doing in everyday life that we're living right now here in April.
What can you do as far as working out the schedule for next year? Where are you on that? We saw a Western Kentucky game early in the year. I don't know if that's officially been announced yet, but what can you do as far as that goes right now?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Kent. I think our schedule is pretty much completed. I think we're working out times and dates and just a couple other things with the exempt event that we're in. So, I don't know what I'm at liberty or not at liberty to say, but, I'll leave that up to Kenny as far as the schedule. Like, we're not making phone calls except for games in the future.
Chris, Ken again with WHAS 11. Was there one of the freshmen maybe that didn't get a lot of minutes this year that you thought really started coming on at the end of the year that you're kind of excited about what they'll bring to this team next year?
Yeah, I think that, obviously Aiden was hurt in the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season with his shoulder. I thought Josh Nickelberry and Quinn Slazinski really became much better players throughout the course of the season as our coaching staff developed them and watched them compete and practice every day. Josh had a little bit of a setback, twisting his ankle in practice, but then rejoining us for the last three weeks or so. And then I thought Quinn, who was behind, guys like Jordan and Dwayne, really made great strides throughout the year, and we're expecting better things out of him in terms of production and playing. And then obviously I redshirted Jalen Withers. Jalen gained an awful lot of strength and weight in his freshman year. I think, he has some ability that you can't teach with his timing, his athleticism, and his length. So, but going into the season, we knew that Jalen was a redshirt. So, this will be an opportunity for him to try to, make his mark and establish playing time next year.
Chris, Russ Brown, I got in a little bit late, so if you have answered this, just say so. About Darius Perry, were you surprised that he left, and also how does that impact the coming season?
I can't say that I was surprised with Darius leaving. I think that, Darius, number one, he's a great kid, and he's a guy that we really enjoyed having in the program. And, despite maybe his personal frustration from time to time, he never let it affect our team. He never let it affect his teammates. And I couldn't have said that about Darius as a sophomore. I thought he was a lot more mature in his junior year. I know personally he may have been frustrated with his role, whether it was scoring or playing more or what have you. But he's a guy that I'm rooting for. I hope he has a great senior year and does exactly what he's hoping to do. He signed up for a pressing, running, open style that, again, I wouldn't call us Virginia, but we play obviously a little bit more in the half court. And so I'm hopeful that he finds what he's looking for. And, there's no animosity on our end or my end. And he was a great teammate. And but it didn't shock us, him leaving.
Chris, this is Gary Gray from AP. What kind of challenges, I guess, communications-wise, has this whole situation posed for you in terms of keeping in touch with coaches and players, if at all?
It's just different. It's obviously unique. I'm not used to having staff meetings, like we're having this press conference. I'm used to seeing our players in the gym and up in my office and, having the opportunity to take them out to lunch or, just the daily interactions. And so, now it's a FaceTime call and then you don't see the guy the rest of the day. So it'd be nothing for me to, run into Quinn Slazinski 3 or 4 times in a day, whether he was, coming out of the weight room or going to see Fred in the training room, heading out to get shots or driving across campus. And now it's, only initiated if we make a phone call or he makes a phone call and then you don't really hear from him. So it's different. I don't like it, but, we're all in this situation together.
Coach Pat
Sullivan again. Oh, go ahead.
Coach Pat Jaggers, ESPN Louisville. You talked earlier about, you said if you had the chance to get your guys' roster better, you're going to do that by any means possible. That's your job. But just to kind of go off of that question earlier, do you feel like that there's any positional need that you'd be willing to address right now? And if so, what would that be?
Well, we have one scholarship currently, so we can't have more than 12 scholarships for this upcoming year, based on, all the scholarships that the program had to give back before our staff got here. And so we're sitting right now, as I count them, 11. We have one scholarship to give, and our intent is to try to bring in a guy that can help us in the front court, particularly at the center position.
Chris, from a personal standpoint, how have you been spending your time that's not basketball related? What has been your routine?
Yeah, I think, I joked about it the other day. I used to have a buddy of mine that worked from home, and he used to get up in the morning, make himself coffee, put on his work clothes, and get in his car and drive around the block. And then he actually pulled up to his side door at the house and then worked from home and did the exact opposite when work was over. And so I used to laugh at him, and now I understand why. Walking around in your shorts and a T-shirt all day doesn't put you in a frame of mind to be productive, in my opinion. So I've tried to get up every morning and, make my Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Thankfully, we have a Keurig here. And then, go right into this office, which, I could show you the office real quick if you'd like. You can sort of see it. You can see it. It has nothing in here. So that's what it's looked like for the first 2 years of our living here. And my wife's has done a pretty good job of putting some things in here. I've got a bunch of stationery and folders and memo pads and stuff that didn't have in here before, because I always worked on my couch with my laptop when I watch film. But it's not very conducive when Braden, Laney and Haley are screaming through the house 24/7. So I close the door, I come in this office, and I generally don't leave out except to get something to eat at lunch. And then, when I'm done, maybe with some of the stuff on my desk here in the day, it's very, very simple. Other than that, I go out in the side yard and shoot baskets. I wave to Satterfield when he walks around the block, and same with Eric Wood. That's about it.
Chris, Russ again. Your wife said a couple of weeks ago that you were already delirious, quote unquote, and you're not much on home projects. Is that true?
Delirious, yes. I didn't realize how active I was. I've always been that way. I can't sit still. And so being forced to sit still, or at least be in your house, because I'm following the governor's orders for 14 days. I think I'm on day 5 or 6. I don't know where I'd go if I was allowed to leave anyway at this point. So it's been very, very weird for me. As far as home projects, I will have you know that on Saturday, I went around the house and picked all the weeds around our house. And it's a big accomplishment for me. Filled up 5 bags with weeds. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, that's awesome. Excited about it. Couldn't walk the next day, but that's all right.
Kent Taylor from Wave again, Coach. For a lot of us, and I'm sure for you, this is different than anything anybody's ever been through, but really hit home when you heard about Jody. I know you guys are close. How did that kind of hit you?
Hard. I know in Jody's profession, you're not supposed to get close to coaches, but I knew Jody before I came to Louisville. He had covered my wife when he was at the Courier-Journal, when she was, I don't know if you guys know, she's from Louisville and played basketball here. And Jody covered her, and so that became a friendship that, when I was at different AAU events and stuff, and Jody covering, Cardinal recruiting, I just got to know him, pretty well. And that's obviously blossomed into even more of a friendship, now that I'm the coach here. And so it's not a uncommon thing for him to join us at Roosters, after a night of game night. And so it's hit hard. It hit our family hard. My kids know Jody, and so it became really, really personal. This pandemic that we see, covered by 24/7 news stations, social media, and all this stuff. I mean, it's one thing to know about it, but when you actually find out someone that's very close to you that has it, man, it really makes you take a step back and just be very appreciative, and also, in a lot of prayer to make sure that he comes through on the right end of this. So, yeah, it was a shock.
Chris, this is Danielle Lerner again. I know you've had players over the years who wound up pursuing professional careers overseas, and I was wondering if you could shed some light on your brief time in Europe when you played over there, and just what that was like for you.
It was awesome. I really enjoyed, my time overseas. It wasn't very long. I think I went over there in end of July. I was in the country, Slovenia, and I made it till about December. And it was, again, what really cut my college career short. Didn't ever let my professional career get off the ground. That was injuries. But, I think unlike some of the guys that go overseas now that come back because they're homesick, or they can't stand the international food, or whatever the issue is in terms of, going overseas for them. I loved it. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And had I been able to do it health-wise for 10 plus years, I would have done it. But God had other plans, and it led me into coaching, and I'm, forever grateful. But it was an unbelievable experience. I traveled to a ton of different countries, to Bulgaria, to Italy, to Germany, to Yugoslavia, to old Yugoslavia, and all the different countries that tore apart because of the Civil War. It was an incredible experience.
Chris, this is Aaron Matus again with WDRB. We spoke with Ryan last week, and he spoke a little bit about his aspirations to coach. He even said he's had teammates and coaches who have told him that's something maybe he should pursue. Are you one of those coaches that have had that conversation with him, and what kind of coach do you think he'd be if he decides to go down that route?
Yeah, I don't ever tell anybody, including my own players, what they should be. But I do think that he loves the game. I think it took for me to be out of the game as a player for a year or so to realize that I couldn't be without it, at least in the, immediate, from giving up the playing career, that I couldn't really live without being a part of a team. I think Ryan's sort of debating, whether he wants to try to continue playing, or get into the business world. But, I think Ryan would make an excellent coach. It's about connecting with people. You certainly have to have an understanding of the game. He's been around some terrific coaches, obviously. And so I think he would make a fabulous coach if and when he would want to do that. And, I think a lot of players, they just have to understand when they give up the playing career that nobody really cares at what level you played when you become a coach. They only care, like, how can you help me as a player? How can you guide our team? And so it's not about, hey, I used to play and this is what I used to do. Ryan would be no different. He would have to go into sort of more of a coach mode. And I think that's just a matter of having that experience and gaining it. But it'll be interesting to see, what path Ryan ends up choosing professionally.
We'll take two more questions for Coach Mack.
Jeff Taylor from Wave TV again. If Ryan did, following up on that, if Ryan did go into coaching and down the road you were to face him, who would Braden be for?
Ooh, that's a hard-hitting question right there, Kent. Like, it probably depends, how much I discipline Braden in the game in the days leading up to the game. If this week's been any indication of that, he would be rooting for Ryan for sure.
Chris, this is Kent Spencer with WHAS 11. Where would you like to see David and Malik take their games from this year to next? What do they need to add to their games?
Well, I think, for Malik, both of those guys need to be healthy throughout the year. I thought Malik was really hitting his stride when, unfortunately, he went down at Florida State. I thought he was really beginning to assert himself as one of the better front court players in the league. And I would want him to continue to make that same jump. I think that he is a tremendous defensive player. I want his offense to be one that's very versatile. I want him to be just as effective facing the basket, and be a guy that, can help us on the offensive end, maybe more than he has. I thought he was really starting to feel even more confident than he ever has in the low post. But, depending on his matchup, I'd like to be able to consider him a guy that gets us at least double figures every single night. And he should be close to that rebounding wise. I think David had some tremendous moments as a freshman, but at the same time, he had some freshman-like moments that we're really hoping disappear, and that he works really hard over the summer to correct. He had a lot of turnovers in pick and roll situations. He got caught up in the air trying to make a pass. With David's talent level, at times he tries to make a play every time he has the ball, and we need him to be just a little bit more patient in picking his spots and knowing when to go and when not to. He's got to improve his shooting. And he has to be a way better defensive player as a sophomore than he was as a freshman. And usually the biggest jump you make as a college player is between your freshman and sophomore year. And I have no doubt that all of our freshmen, as they grow into sophomores, will make a huge jump for next year. But David's going to be leading that charge, as you guys know, being one of our most talented players.
Great. Thank you, Coach, for joining us today. Media, thank you for joining us. Coach, appreciate the entertainment today, too. It was good break for all of us stuck at home. So, everyone, again, we have Jeff Walls tomorrow at 2 o'clock, Vince Tyree on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Again, Coach, thank you for your time today.